Welcome to the Village of Buchanan Board of Trustees Workshop Meeting. Today is Tuesday, October 26, 2021. This meeting is being conducted in accordance with Chapter 417 of the laws of 2021. And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's our flag. Marcus, you know what? I think what we might have you do is get a flag that you could post also on our.
Sure.
on the
Maybe what I
site.
could do is I get something that moves and share my screen when you're doing that. So
Okay.
I'll see if I
That'd
can.
be-
I'll test something out for the next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, good. First thing on our discussion list, Nancy's not on with us yet.
No, not yet.
Okay.
I just
that's all right.
texted her to see if, what's going on.
Okay, no problem. And Todd is here. From
Yes.
General Code. Okay, so if the board doesn't mind, I'd like to, since Todd is here, I'd like to put him up first on the agenda. And thank you for joining us today, Todd. Yeah, you don't want to listen to our whole meeting. Thank you for joining us, but we asked you to come back in because I think there's been some type of a misunderstanding. I mean, you know, I think most of the board feels that we thought you would have been doing more work on the code, putting in more language and kind of as we're going along, you know, take a look at this, you know, these are our suggestions. And so that's why I asked you back tonight so that the board could ask questions and get an understanding of. Oh, we can't hear you.
You're muted, Todd.
Oh, you're still muted. Sorry. Gotta unmute yourself.
Am I here?
You're here. Anthony, you're good. You're good. I'm
Oh,
with.
Man, I had some serious technical difficulties.
I know you were frozen there.
You
for a
should be
while.
good. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You should
Okay,
be good
Todd.
now, Todd.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
All right. Well, you might want me muted later.
Uh-oh.
No, we're in great shape, and I appreciate the opportunity to see you guys again. It's been a while since we had the last Zoom meeting, and I was glad I could get back and be here for tonight to help you out. I guess I certainly am open to take any questions, but I guess the first thing I'd kind of like to understand is what the questions are, what the confusion is. We've prepared, and you had, to recap, you had an existing code with us from, I don't know, 1997 or something when it was last adopted.
Mhm.
There's been a lot of legislation changes. Many municipalities do this recodification, looking for inaccuracies within chapters throughout the that you've been updating through the years. Changes from state law that may need to be aware of for your municipal regulations and laws. So that's just to recap what we did as far as the recodification for this. We have gone through and looked at all your chapters, reviewed all the legislation that we had, all the new legislation, the existing legislation, and put together what we call an editorial analysis of everything existing and everything new. And we prepared that and sent that to you, looks like back in August. That was a workbook scenario set up. And I guess I don't know who has seen this or who's looked at this. And if I could just back up, maybe you can help me. Who is the Code Project Committee that's been set up to work on this and go through this, if you don't mind sharing?
The village board was going to look at that. That's the committee. is the
Entire
village
board? Okay, so I do this all the time, and what we've done in the past, usually there's somebody that's kind of a project manager, and then your village attorney obviously is going to be a part of this, and maybe not so much in the initial stages, but finalizing before the final draft is submitted back to us. So that's the first thing I think we need to do, is really establish who's going to be kind of responsible for reviewing what you already have, our suggestions that we've prepared for you in the last editorial analysis document that we sent you. And my suggestion is that you break this document up. So somebody that knows the zoning chapter real well takes the zoning chapter and answers the questions or makes the additions to that section. Whoever might have the animals chapter or whatever, and break this up into smaller chunks. This can all be shared, and then it comes together into one final workbook that you return to us. I'll stop there for a second.
That sounds like a good suggestion.
Okay, so that's what that's the
Can I
normal
just
process.
ask, Marcus, did we get copies of all of that?
Yes, I emailed it to the entire board a couple of weeks ago.
Mhm.
No, it's a
Oh, okay, I was out of action a couple of weeks ago, so I don't know whether I got. Got
I'll resend it tonight or first thing tomorrow. I'll resend it again. No problem.
Thank you very much, Marcus.
Of course, of course.
So what this is, and it's a bit overwhelming when you first receive it. Yours is 110 pages. Now, that being said, the first 10 or 12 pages are instructions, explains the whole process, what we have done, what we need you to do, how you can answer the questions that we have, and take the language that we did provide. There's also, if there's questions, you all have access to Barbara, who is your legal editor, and she has the ability to provide sample language. If something came up in the just shooting from if something came up in vehicles and you didn't like the way the code was right now, but you had you wanted to see sample language of other codes, we can certainly provide that for you. Then you can decide if that fits your municipality or not. Or you all should have access to ECode 360, which is your code in the digitized electronic, fully searchable format. One of the nice features about that is you can go in and do what we call a multi-code search. And I don't expect you to take a lot of notes. I'm more than happy to train anybody on this and how to use this tool. But this tool is available to you right now through your subscription to ECode, where you could go in and search every other code. You wouldn't do that, but you may want to search every village code within 200 miles of you to see what legislation has been done on plastic bags. So you could search every code. You could go to somebody's code. You said, I like the way that's set up. We need new legislation on that. Download it to Word, change Cortlandt to Buchanan, and within your Word, save it, adopt it, and it automatically is new legislation. So where you would probably use this within the code project is you're not really sure you like the language. We, General Code, has raised some questions and need some clarification on what you want there. You may want to go out and use the multi-code search functionality within the tool you have.
Marcus,
I'm pausing just to allow you to.
can I just make a quick comment?
Sure.
Sorry, Todd, this is to the board, to Marcus and Cindy mostly. I just did a search of my email and nothing comes up. So either it means I never got it, more likely it means it's in one of those meeting packets that's lengthy and not in the heading. So when you send it again, can you please make sure that the email heading says general code or code review, so that a search of our emails with the word code will bring it right up?
Yeah, I'll put up as recodification or recode or something like that.
It
No
doesn't come
problem.
up. I'm looking at emails back to, throughout the year, and nothing comes up with the word code in the title.
No problem. I'll probably, if it's not too late tonight, I'll do it tonight or first thing tomorrow.
I probably won't look at it tonight. As far as I'm concerned, it could wait till tomorrow.
All right, it'll happen tomorrow.
So what
So
you would see, I'm sorry, Mayor.
it's just a lot of work. And I think we thought there would be more work handled by your company. And we are definitely not going to have this done by January.
I'm not concerned with that. This is just to kind of as a parameter. When I sent you the original proposal, it had kind of time frames that keep it on task to be done in a relatively timely fashion. So don't let the tech or that work. There's no extra charge for not finishing on certain dates and things like that. But I think we've made this very, and maybe it'll make more sense, and we can meet again, or certainly answer any additional questions. When you get into this document, you will see, I mean, the first thing we need to know is that you're going to get 5 print copies. So that's a checkbox.
Mhm.
And if you wanted more, you'd ask, we want 3 more.
Right,
next
I know we
question-
had discussed that.
Okay, so the next question is, what color cover do you want? And there's 6 choices. You check that. Then the cover lettering, and you check that. Then we get into those things are pretty quick. Is there any other titles of departments that you want us to change? So I know that the administrator position was added after the prior code.
Mhm.
So I think if you haven't seen it, there's check boxes, and then as you get into the code, let me see if I get to the first question here. And this I always like to explain a little bit too. So it says question 1-001. That means it's the first question of the first chapter. It gets a little more scary when you see like question 1 of chapter 7. So it's all spelled out here, and then that question, an explanation of what we need to get, and you can either check a box to revise the amount as we suggested, so we did the work ahead of time, revise the amount as suggested, but further revise, and there's a box to put some additional language in. There's a box to see attached revisions, or there's a box to retain with no change. So there's 4 choices there. We're going to change it. Nope. We're going to leave it. Nope. We're going to do what general code is suggested. And you would go through those questions like that and answer. If you get to a spot where you're going, oh boy, that's a bit of a boondoggle right now, just save it for later. So move on to the ones that we can do. And as I said, I think it's advantageous to break this up and go through the chapters and who is best fitted to take the first stab at the questions. There is a link with every question that's there. And if you click on it, the language of the article or of the code section that we're referencing or have a question about is there with a live link. You can automatically click on that. It takes you right into your code. So that's very, very high and quick overview of what the document is. And I really do think once everybody has a chance to look at the document, if you haven't, it's really pretty self-explanatory. Where you get into maybe some questions is new legislation or wanting to change existing legislation.
You said there was 110 pages. How many actual topics were changed? There again, I didn't review it. I didn't get it either. I don't know if, like Nick said, maybe I overstepped it a little bit or missed it. But how many actual items were to be revised? If you remember offhand,
Again, this is your legal editor that was assigned had gone through and put all this together and reviewed your whole code and made all the questions. But I'm seeing things like there's a question on chapter 45, alcoholic beverages related to open containers. There's another one on chapter 45, alcoholic beverages. Then amusement devices is chapter 49. Another 2 on, and then there's a question 1, 2.
So it's safe to say there's a couple of hundred then.
No, I don't. I don't have the exact number of questions, but
That's okay. No problem. I was just wondering how voluminous it was, that's all.
Yeah,
Right.
so actually I'm seeing the document is 100 pages and there's maybe a question or two on each one, each chapter.
Okay,
So
sure, okay.
to give you an example, if it'll help, this question 2 of chapter 53, animals, the code content is keeping of animals and fowl. Article 2 is dogs. Article 3 is cats and domestic animals. The editor, Barbara's comment says, the village may want to review these articles together to determine whether any provisions overlap or conflict. Although Article 1 pertains to livestock, chickens, fowl, etc., and Article 2 pertains to dogs, Article 3 appears to encompass such animals also in its application to cats and other domestic animals and defines domestic animal. So then it says, pick one option from the list below. Do not revise except if noted elsewhere in the analysis. Revise as follows. And maybe you've got some legislation in a Word document or something that you can cut and paste and put in this box. And you check see attached revisions. So that's an example of how the questions are set up. And as I said, if we go, oh, geez, I don't know if we want to address cats like this, save it to later and move on to the next one. It's like taking the SATs, which was a long time ago for me.
No kidding. All right. Do any other board
Uh,
members have questions? Because otherwise we have to go back to the drawing board here.
At this
because-
point, my question is how we're going to handle this. I think that Todd's suggestion that we break it up, I think we need to break up the document and assign board member, each board member certain chapters, and maybe give it a month, and then we have a special meeting and we review, each person can review the questions from their chapters. Having probably more zoning experience than everybody else here, really, I volunteer to take that chapter. And if there's other chapter, I don't know, maybe the only thing to do is Marcus or Teresa or both to just break it up and just assign the chapters to the board members. You know, I think we each have to take a chunk of this, otherwise it's not going to get done if one of us has to go through the whole thing.
No, you're right. It's a lot of work, but you know what? It needs to be done too.
And Mr. Metcalf, if we seem to get stuck on some interpretations or the ability to come up with our own draft legislation, you guys would be able to supply us with the draft legislation for a review and potential adoption.
Correct. And I would recommend you rely on us. If you do get something, don't spend a lot of time on it, Sean. Just, say, let's see what general code can pull for us. Or as I mentioned, you can pull it from your ECode 360 yourself if you wanted to search, but ask us for sample legislation and we'll pull it and say, here's sample legislation on this and Ossining. I'm just making these up because that's where I was this week.
Sure.
Okay.
I know that the ones that you read off seem to be kind of minor. I'm sure there's other ones that are more complicated. I think what the questions were and why the mayor might have asked you back is because we felt that you were going to review the code and supply us with a new code with the previous draft legislation, with your revised draft legislation for our approval. Well, we weren't really under the impression that we were going to adopt a type of text, but it's good to know that, you will be available to give us the text if we can't come up with ourselves or if we have some problems with the questions. Like I said, the ones you came up with that you read off seem to be pretty innocuous. I haven't read them, so I didn't see the more complicated ones, but I appreciate your offer for the ability to
Yeah,
help us out.
I just got down to question, chapter 97 is flood damage prevention. So there could be, it looks like there might be a few more questions related to that. And you'll see, and it's kind of hard when you're not looking at it, but I think we took your existing code that was out of date. We went through every word of every piece of that and all of the legislation that was provided or that's been adopted since, that we had. We've reviewed all of that. We've combined it into this editorial analysis with our suggestions, with our questions, with clarifications you may want to consider. So I think, I mean, that's what we've done. This, again, and it's not being smart, it's not our code, it's how you want the legislation in your code so that you can enforce it within your municipality.
Mhm.
And we've outlined everything and given you some thought-provoking things to say, like I explained in the animals one, here's something you may want to consider. So you'll see that in every chapter.
I appreciate your clarification. And I think we can work with that. I don't know how the rest of the people
Yeah,
feel.
that's, first thing I want Marcus to resend that to everyone. If you could do that, Marcus, and then Marcus
No
and I
problem.
can sit down to review and set up some type of a schedule.
I'm more than happy once you make the assignments or you got people with, it's certainly fine. Barbara and I can come back with the group and show how, best practices of going through and answering these questions without getting too deep in your end. And I do see that quite a bit. Let's get them answered. We're not doing anything final. This is going to come back. We're going to compile all of this when it's done. And I would suggest, Marcus, that there is one master copy that be kept. So as you break this up, this document is fully searchable. So if you've got the zoning chapter, you can type zoning and it'll pull you right into your zoning section. And then as the additions or the information is provided, we pull it back into the master copy. That comes back. We go through, we create a draft based on the answers to the questions and the clarifications. This is what we understand you want the code to look like. There's another chance to review it. And then you send it back, say, yep, that's it. And we actually will create the new code for you with a local law prepared for you of the official adoption of the new code. So then you would adopt that, and now your code would say adopted in, May of 2022 or whatever it is. So we also go to that extent of preparing that local law for you so that it is a enforceable document.
Okay. So we got to go back to the drawing board with that.
I think a good start, I mean, I hope you're going to be pleasantly surprised when you see the document and you go through and break it out that, you've got this many questions for this and that, and then pull them together. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and our examples and our ability to pull legislation that you may find useful that you'd like to review is not a problem at all. And it's included in the scope of your project.
Okay. All right, any other
Um,
questions? I'm sorry.
So ECode 360 that you're referencing, that's simply our online version, our online code on our, on our website. There's a link to the code. That's the online code,
That's
which
correct.
is
It
where
should-
you can do a search by title. You could just look up a chapter and click on it. That's the online version of the code, basically, correct?
That's correct. And I believe it's up, Marcus, it's linked from your website, right?
It is, yeah. I actually have it open right now.
So the URL is ecode360.com /BU0230. If you wanted to click it. And-
There's a direct link on our website under government.
Perfect. That's great. And I did go on there today and I added there's a residential piece, where your residents and your constituents can go in to look up questions or to go up and look in animals or signs or traffic or whatever, instead of coming to the clerk and asking all of this. There's a login capability for every municipal employee, which gets you additional information, additional features and benefits like the multi-code search, downloading to PDF, adding public documents to your code, so your minutes, your agendas, adding notes. If you wanted to put a note into a certain chapter that you always go to, you have a lot of these capabilities, and that may require, or I'm certainly happy to do any training on that. So one of the things I looked at today was So right now, the administrators of the ECode as administrator at Village of Buchanan. Cynthia's in there, Marcus is in there. Sean, you're in there, but you've never logged in. So I can certainly send you another reminder, which I just did. Another invitation. You'll get an email, Sean, that says, congratulations, you now have access to ECode 360. Set up your password. I think some of your inspectors are in there. B Cook. P Cook is never logged in. And I set up Stephanie today, and she has gone in and set up her password. So
Okay.
that's a big piece too of utilizing these tools that you've purchased and are paying for. And that is a great tool.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I never set up a password is because I was under the impression it was the same ECode that we accessed through the village website. So whenever I had an issue with a code, I would just go in there and keyword search it. So I didn't know there was a separate feature. So I'm sorry for that.
Nope, not understandable. I've got a lot of clerks. I cover the whole state, as you know. I got a lot of clerks that don't log in either, and they're they're not setting up additional users. So I do a lot of training on ECode, and that's understandable. So you should get another email, Sean. I just sent it. Go in, set up a password, and you'll find out. There's things in there without getting too deep, but administrators can go in and see how many times your code is getting hit a month, how many times a day, how many times an hour, what the most popular search terms are the last 30 days and the last 12 months, which gives the board a little idea of what people are looking for. So anyway, that's didn't mean to get off on that, but I think you've got a lot of tools, and we've certainly attempted to make it as easy as possible for you to get a current, compliant, updated, enforceable code. But by no means, do not hesitate to reach out to Barbara or I, and we'll be here to support you and do this.
All right, we will go back to the drawing board, like I said, and we'll assign people, different trustees to take different sections
Super.
and come back and discuss it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the opportunity. Great seeing everybody. Marcus, I'm
Thank
sure
you.
we'll be
We'll
talking.
talk again.
Yep. All right. Have a good week.
All right, you too.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Todd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, Nancy, update waiting pool. We'd like to resolve this evening. I
Okay.
think most of the board is of the thinking not to put the money into the waiting pool.
Right, I was thinking, I went to Marcus, I think we should wait a year. Go through another camp season, hold off on it, see what really comes of it this coming summer. Sean had asked me about how many more counselors would it take. You know, I pulled from other groups this year, even myself and the other directors went in if needed. I don't really think it would take too many more counselors. The issue is getting the counselors. That's going to be the issue. But as far as the waiting pool is concerned, it is a lot of money. I was, listening to it. I'm like, oh my God, let's try one more year and see what happens and see what, people in the village think. And if we get any, feedback from the village people, over the next summer. So that's my opinion.
One of the other things I had asked Nancy, not only how many more counselors you thought you would need, but when you said we were having an issue getting enough counselors, I had also asked, what do you think an increase in pay scale would be required in order to ensure we would be able to have the increased staff? And I wanted to use those numbers to factor in the cost benefit analysis.
Right. I got a spreadsheet from RAPS that has a lot of municipalities on it with what they pay their director, what they pay their counselor, a seasoned counselor, things like that. It is at work. Obviously, I don't have that here. I will email that to you guys on Thursday so that you can see it, what they're
I think
paying.
you've shown us some of that, haven't you? I think you've
Yeah.
broken that down for us a couple of times.
Yeah,
Or
I
shown
did.
us some of it.
Mhm.
But, I've always stayed with, usually have stayed within the budget. And the budget isn't up for a while yet, you know, to really see how much more I think I would need, if that at all.
Okay, well, you know,
Always, Sean, I'm always for a raise for my counselors.
Yeah, and our
Yeah.
well, you
salaries
have to
and-
request,
I'm sorry, Shirley.
The more you pay them, the more I think we would be likely to get.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I just don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah.
But I will send you
Nancy?
that spreadsheet that was sent to me.
Okay, from what you can remember, are our salaries in line with other communities, the town?
Only with the town.
Okay, and the other ones are lower or higher?
It depends. Some are paying a lot more.
Okay,
I didn't really see anybody who was paying less. I may have seen one, but I don't recall off the top of my head who that was. All right,
Okay.
and not everybody participated in it. So I'll send that to you. You guys can say, hey, Eastchester paid this, or I paid that, because it's from all over the county. All right, Groton
All right.
paid this, Pleasantville paid that, Town of Portland paid this, you know. But not everybody volunteered their salary information for everybody else to look at.
I think it would be tough to compare us to Rye, which is
I
a very
agree.
wealthy community, you know, so I
Yeah.
think you want to kind of keep it local.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
So, but as far as the waiting pool is concerned, I think we should hold off at least a year and see what happens. And maybe visit it next July before camp ends or before July ends. Because if that's the point, if we say, hey, we really do need it, that's the point that we really need to move forward on it then. Okay, not waiting until October, November, December, because if you choose to move forward with it, it needs to get done and be done by June 1st, just so that we can have pool up and operational.
All right.
So
Let's
maybe
see if any
revisit it
other-
in June, July, once camp is in full swing, and we'll see how it's going.
I think we should be on the lookout for a grant that might cover it as well, because, you know, if we can
Well,
get
Teresa
grant money.
had said that last time that there was $100,000 grant she could get. So
Yeah,
that
I
would
mean,
help. It wouldn't
Right,
cover
if we
it.
get an infrastructure grant, we have to make sure there's nothing like, you know, vital that supersedes it that we have to do right away, or, you know, need the money for right away. But I mean, but if we can see our way through to getting that done with grant money, I think that would sort of
That would be
answer the
great.
question, so to speak.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But that's not going to happen now. I mean, we could look into the grant money now, but we're not going to get it fixed by
Well,
next
it's
June. It's already.
Ongoing, it should be, it should sort of be on the back burner ongoing.
I do
Yes.
have 100,000 that's available for that now for a grant if the board chose to do that, but it sounds like, you know, we want to wait a year and is that the direction of the board
Yes.
to wait? Yes?
Yeah,
Do you think-
that's fine.
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
All right.
All right, thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome. Sorry I was late.
No, that's fine, that's fine. Okay, the continuation of discussion of hiring a planner and rezoning of Indian Point. And I just think that this became more important as we got information from Holtec on their assessment of the property. I just really think that we need to move forward and hire the consultant, the planner to really start looking at it. And yes, not all parts of the property are available, but you know what, we really need to start planning for the future. Otherwise, we're going to get things in there that we might not want. So it's time for us to get our heads together, figure out what direction, what we think that property, how that should be developed eventually. And hopefully, I've had ongoing discussions with Holtec, as a matter of fact, last week, today, about the release of the property. So I'm not letting that go. So it's, I guess I'm a nag, but that's okay. That's how I am. So,
But we just
So
talked
we
about this
gotta,
last
we
time.
gotta vote on this to whether to hire a planner or not. Is that the gist of this?
that's the discussion. Are we going to hire a planner to rezone the property of Indian Point?
I'm for that. And I believe, Nick, didn't you say last week or the one meeting that we should get a professional?
I was kind of beside myself, actually, Rich. Yes, we definitely need to.
Okay,
All right, because this is a process we have to go through. This isn't going to happen overnight.
I
So we
think,
need
yeah,
some,
I think we need to
direction.
get this moving ASAP because, you know, the property could get sold. You know, you know, we're talking about reviewing that property, and I know this is on the agenda for tonight, but, you know, I'm going to bring it right into it because it's tied in. The discussion of to do a master plan because a master plan, you know, we sort of need a master plan that covers that property as well. Problem is that that process could take a couple of years. And I think this, you know, if we can get something, I think if we can get a plan on the books for that property, even though it's redundant with the master plan, I think there's some timeliness would benefit us. So, you know, I don't know exactly what the answer is here, but the master plan is sort of related to it, but I think it really needs to happen. We need to kick it off with a dedicated meeting. Teresa and I, we were talking about this earlier today, but I think it, you know, we can't just have some of these important things that are coming up need their own meetings, not a meeting where let's get through this because we got 6 more things to talk about. We really need to focus on this and get the ball going.
Mhm. Right. Marcus, with the master plan, you know, there's not that we, other than the 240 acres, there are some properties that can be developed, but I think this also gets into the discussion that we've had recently about other parcels perhaps being used for something different. And that's kind of a discussion we need to get into.
Well, the master plan could look, you know, more broadly around the village, you know, and keep in mind, while the master plan does not oblige you to follow it, by having things in a master plan, you've sort of laid out a template which is beneficial when you're applying for grant money, beneficial when you're either encouraging or trying to restrict a developer. You know, the master plan kind of gives you a leg to stand on in a lot of ways.
Well, you know, if we look back at the master plan that's in effect now, you know, we had a situation with affordable housing because that was in the previous master plan, that piece of property was pointed out as potential affordable housing there. So
The definition of affordable housing in 2005 was
Yeah.
different than the definition in 2017. So that's one of the reasons why you're not supposed to use a master plan for 15 or 20 years. All right, because I'm sure that I know a lot of the people that were on that committee, and I know that they didn't use that same interpretation. They wanted, well, I'm not going to speak for them, but I don't believe that that was being used in the manner that it was intended to when it was developed and adopted in 2005.
yeah, I think it
I
was
think that they were
more,
talking more about senior housing
That's
than
correct.
affordable.
Affordable. They were talking about affordable senior housing to
Mhm.
allow residents, current residents, to remain within the village of Buchanan. I'm sure that they did not intend to have a lottery system in the 8 adjoining
Right,
communities.
right.
Well, you
Well,
know what?
sometimes
Who could
that's
foresee that, though?
unforeseeable.
You know, who could foresee that? Because that's not what
Right.
was happening in 2005. And then
Right.
suddenly we were faced with, okay, so this is something different from what the original intent was.
A lot
I
has
believe.
happened since then.
Yeah, the
You know,
world's
like
changed.
there was the federal settlement that, you know, was pushing communities to develop affordable units. And in 2000 versus 2020, we were not as mixed, racially mixed, and what might be required of us now will be different than what might have been required when that settlement first came about. You know, so I mean, a lot has changed, and I think in general, master plans are supposed to be updated
The 10 years, is it?
every 10 years, is it? So, you know, it's and everything in the master plan might 5 or 10 years later not look perfect, but you got to give it your best shot, you know, and you need a diversity of people on the committee. You know, you got to have people, you have to have some new residents, you have to have hopefully some people with experience, you know, some experience in planning, zoning, and you need a diversity of opinion. You this can't be used by any particular group to try and, steer things a certain way. You need different perspectives and you need a group that'll come to, kind of a consensus.
I think we're getting off on a tangent here because we didn't budget for it. We don't have a committee for it. This is should be the last master plan went for like I believe it was development for 3 or 4 years, and it cost around $85,000. None of which
That's
we
probably about
budgeted
100.
or planned. So we're getting off a little on a tangent here. I think
We are, but it was on the next item on the agenda, so I just
Oh.
thought it was connected. So
I didn't know we finished the other item. You kind of put them together because
yeah, so
well, I had made a suggestion last month if we were very afraid that the property at Indian Point was to be sold, we can immediately change that zoning to C2 by hiring a planner. As I had said before, none of the property is available, and even if that planner were to give us suggestions of what other communities do and what he believes would be the most cost beneficial, we would still have to subdivide that property. The subdivision of any property, as you know, requires the village's approval. So we just wouldn't have to approve any subdivision. So unless the entire site is sold, which I believe would be
No.
impossible
Yeah.
at the time, they would have to come to us and ask for a subdivision. And that's one reason why I asked last month that if we wanted to change zoning for certain parcels, before we even hire somebody, we should have lines of demarcation, lines of delineation, so that we know what why try to develop something that you can never have until the Department of Energy takes it. So we need lines of demarcation to even give this guy a parameters for him to work on.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think that there's any major rezoning there is probably it's going to require a secret review. There are submittals and procedures and things. I think hiring a planner to lead the process would facilitate things, and the board. I don't know. I think that's too much to put on a small village like this with minimal staff and
All you have to
no
do is change
no
the law.
planning department. We don't have a planning department,
That's all you have to do is say this M2 zone is now C2. Just include it in an overlay district.
Yeah,
But
but the
it's-
overlay district required a secret review.
No matter what you do, is going to require secret,
The other one's going to be too.
Okay,
no matter what.
okay. I think the planner would handle that, would handle the submittals to the state, to the county, whatever's required.
Did we have to
um,
submit something to the state for an overlay?
To the county, I'm sorry. I'm just speaking generally, whatever is required, the planner would know and would handle the drafts and so forth.
And also the uses that can work in certain parts of the property, but there are some demarcations preliminary that were done. We have DL English that had done a
Yeah.
preliminary
Yeah.
report for the
But
state. So it's
DL
rough. I mean, they're rough approximations.
DL English gave no coordinates. They gave
gave
circles
sections
to
of the
A's,
property.
B's, and C's.
Yeah, they just gave sections of the properties what they thought could
So
be.
if we're
Hey, I
gonna-
could go on Google Maps and give us the coordinates. The
Okay,
planner-
so let's say this D area is gonna be C whatever, C3, and then we'll make up C3 later on. How's that? You could do it for free.
I'm just concerned if somebody comes in, they decide to sell the property and we don't have it zoned for what we'd like to see in the future. So right now, what's the zone? We know it's not going to be nuclear. These small modular reactors are just not there yet. They're being developed, but the problem is also New York seems to be a little anti-nuclear. So we know right off the bat, that's not going to be a consideration. What's scheduled to use there now is what, gas stations? I don't know. I don't see a gas station going in that area. What
No,
else is on that schedule of use?
Yeah,
There's
mean,
a lot of things in the M2 and M1
Yeah.
zone, those are just.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that-
If we don't like that, we, like I said, we seem to
Mhm.
like C2 and C1. We can make C1 and C2 just immediately.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, you can make that its own zone too. You don't have to necessarily follow the template of C1 or C2.
But
You
no
can
matter
make it a
what, you
C3, you can
And
just
then what
make
would
it a
you like to see
C3
included?
or mixed use zone 1. You can call it what you want. You don't have to follow the template of one of the other zones.
okay.
Mhm. Mhm. Could create a new zone. You're correct. I don't know. I just think a planner would be able to help us through it because we seem to sometimes we don't have the professionals that we don't always have the professionals we need to guide us to get certain things done. I think
And
that's
let me
one of
ask
the
you,
important things.
the price we got from him was
It's
it
about 15.
14, 15,000 or something like that?
Mhm.
I think I think that's something that would be worth having a planning professional lead the process, keep it moving, facilitate it, feedback from our ideas, comment on our ideas, person we can ask questions. I think so.
I think it would be more constructive conversation too, and actually get it done. But also remember, there is money left from some construction that's going on currently. So it's not like that's coming out of our village money. So, we could use that money for that.
What money is that, Mayor? I'm sorry.
When we're doing, I had negotiated with the pipeline company, that, of course, they have flag people there. Of course, they're going to be redoing the road, they're going to be repaving, but I had also asked them for impact fees.
How is the
And-
impact fee calculated?
Well, it's calculated at $10,000 a week, and George felt that his cost would be about $5,000 for the whole project. So we should be $15,000 ahead.
What code was that?
It's not in the code. It's just, this is on top of our fees. This was an impact fee I was able to negotiate with them.
It's in
So
it's
not
in
in the
the
code?
it's in the
fee
gimme
schedule?
money chapter in the code book.
I was able to negotiate with them once before when they put the 42-inch line above and beyond what it would cost to do road openings and different things. And I think, what did we get? 725, 750. So when they came back this time, I asked them for another impact fee. So that'll be above what our engineer, the fees for our engineer.
So
And
we're
just so
collecting-
everybody knows, we did get into a situation where they originally weren't going to hire flagmen. But what happened is we had people almost getting in accidents and getting killed over there. So the company, Enbridge, did bring in their own flag people to control traffic. And they did mention to me, I got the information this week, it was supposed to be a 2-week project. It's being extended for another week. Basically, it's maintenance. As you know, the pipeline is being watched very carefully by many people. So we got into a situation where Senator Gillibrand was contacted. The Indian Point Oversight Board, the head of that was contacted, and it's maintenance that they're doing on their lines. And we appreciate that they maintain their lines. So it's nothing mysterious happening. They're doing maintenance on their lines.
So we have the ability to collect a fee that's not listed in the fee schedule or on the, in the code? Is there a reason why we can't collect that from Con Edison?
I'm not sure if they would be agreeable to impact fees. I mean, we can always ask them, but they're a little tougher to deal with, Con Edison. We could do that. But it doesn't cost anything to ask, right?
I just find it strange that we can take money from somebody and it's not in our codes. It's more like a voluntary contribution that they're making. Because I've never
It's
heard of
more
it.
like they realize the inconvenience it causes to the community, and especially if we have the activists coming into town, it's going to be more of an impact on our community. It's an
Yeah,
impact.
I mean,
with
if
the roads.
they were fighting it, you couldn't necessarily demand it without some other kind of procedure or action. But if they're working with us and agreeable, they can do it, right? It's
Something
not,
else that I
it
think
may not be
another word
required
that
by
are
code,
used
but it can be
for,
negotiated.
I was always under the impression there are different types of words used for this type of request.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Okay.
So that's, there seem to be 3 people here that are ready to approve hiring a planner. So I make a motion that we move ahead with this.
No, we'll have to go at the next meeting. We'll have a motion to approve in the next meeting for a vote or whatever. It'll be
Okay.
the next,
Then
at the
there it
voting meeting.
is.
You can't do this at a workshop.
Then I suggest we go on to the next topic unless somebody wants to add something to the conversation here.
Okay, moving along. This kind of coincides with some other stuff. Updating table of use regulations. I think this was something you asked to put on the agenda, Nick.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. I've been asking for years. I'm not exactly, this is a I made up these worksheets. Blank code table, basically the schedule of use regulations listing the different zones and the headings under that zone from May 14th, 2019. I remember I gave these to everybody on the board and asked if people would go through the table of use regulations and see if there were things in there that they thought should be taken out or uses that should be added in or changes in general. It just never got followed up on. I guess we've just been too darn busy.
Just a
But
little bit.
I've got lots of notes still from then and I've reviewed it and added. Like one thing I know we had a very perfectly good biotech company that did DNA sequencing that wanted to move in on Greentown Road. And because the code didn't allow it, they would have had to go through like a 6-month process if they petitioned for a zoning amendment. They didn't want to deal with that. They got a space in Ossining where they were allowed by code. So it's just one example of how our code is outdated and can affect what happens here in the village. So, just the fact that the M2 zone, once the nuclear plant shut, allows service stations, gas stations, convenience stores associated with gas stations, auto repair, basically, it's just outdated code in general. That could deal with separately with a planner for that property. But I think in general, the schedule of use regulations has some outdated things, wording that's a little vague.
Nick, can I ask, isn't this going to be covered by the people who are doing the code?
No, because the people that are doing the code are not doing anything to change the code. They're looking for inconsistencies where something might have been changed in one chapter, but it didn't get reflected elsewhere. They're looking for contradictions. I think but they're not, I don't think they're actually doing anything to suggest changes to the code. That has to come from the board.
But when you get into use, I mean, there's, you say manufacturing, you get into use, there's so many variables. I mean, I don't know how you can really.
Right. Well, one thing is like, okay, so here, let me just give a good point, good question. So many variables. Okay, currently in our C1 zone, the following retail uses are permitted: restaurants, pharmacies, funeral parlors, food stores, delicatessens, furniture and clothing stores, liquor, sporting goods, stationery, jewelry, camera and photo supply, florist, beauty, and barbershops. Now, you could sort of probably lump those into a couple of broad categories like consumer retail and consumer services, and because it doesn't list tattoo parlors, but that's a very common thing these days, and we actually have one. The zoning board did an interpretation on that one, and so they were allowed in. You could say, well, that's kind of like a beauty parlor, but while a lot of these uses still exist, some of them are, some things are antiquated. Some things we may not want anymore. in certain areas. And we might want to add some wording to allow some things that are more common now that were not common 50 years ago. Brew pubs. Whoever heard of a brew pub 50 years ago? There were big commercial breweries that made beer and sold them in the stores. You know, now a brew pub is a very common thing in different places. Places that make their own craft beer and have a pub. You could have, you know, these biotech and technical support and research companies and services that didn't exist 50, 60 years ago. So you know, I'm not exactly sure the best way to go about this is. I mean, if we're going to rezone Indian Point, you need a secret review. If you add biotech companies in your allowed uses in a C2 zone, I don't even know. I don't know that we have to do a secret review. I'm not exact. We'd need to determine that. I'm not sure.
So Nick, instead of reinventing the wheel, we're putting out all new permitted uses and as of right uses and special use permit uses. Why don't we just change the instructions for the use of the matrix? If you read on the matrix, it says any use not specifically listed on the attached tables shall be deemed as not allowed, not allowable, or as in certain where I don't have it in front of me, I'm just paraphrasing.
Well, you know what?
So what we could do is leave.
You might be right that minimal wording changes would do it. And I'm fine with that. I think there's a couple of specific things I'd like to add in and a couple of specific things I'd like to take out, but something like that might solve a lot of the issue. But
how about letting me finish? Nick, hold on a second. You're getting it. Let me finish my thought.
oh,
Okay.
okay.
We could leave the as of right uses for right now. Whatever is in as of right, we can leave right there. And for anything that comes up that is not specifically listed, we could say that a special use permit can be granted in the affected zone, so that it's not an entire zoning text change. All it is, hey, if we believe that this business should be in a C2 zone, just come in for a special use permit and you go through the entire planning stage. There isn't more than 30 days added to the process. You don't have to go through a whole code change. You don't have to postulate every single use for every single area. You can use it as you use for a special use permit. And all you would need to do is to change the instructions for use of the tables and have the zoning department, the zoning board, and the building inspector say, we think this fits into M1. We think this fits into M2. We think this fits into C1, C2, whatever. And you could apply for a special use permit, and they would have to go through the exact same planning issues and zoning issues that they would as if it was already listed on that chart. And you'd only have to change one paragraph.
I think that's a good idea. I think that there's a few, you know, specific things I might want to add or take out, but that might.
But it's
more-
impossible to
Your
postulate.
suggestion would
everybody's
give a little
requirement.
broader sweep for because you can't think of everything.
You can't.
But I
Who
would
would have thought 20 years ago about a biotech firm, or who would have thought even 10 years ago about a battery storage facility? You know, you hate to go back and do 3 or
Right,
4 month
right.
changes for everything.
Right.
You do it once and you're in.
I think that's a good idea. So, you know, some wording like that would cover the bases for things that we may not list specifically. I kind of would like to just in the C1, C2 add, you know, biotech research companies. I'm not looking for heavy biotech manufacturing, you know, or industrial, although that might work over in the current nuclear portions at Indian Point.
But if you leave that as a special use permit, then it would be determined if the use fits the area. And that's what's the best thing about a special use. Special use permit. You know, it's not permitted as of right. You take into those things. So it's not guaranteed that it'll fit there, but it has the possibility of going there.
Yeah, you know? But if something is allowed by special use permit, then you have to have good reasons to deny it. So,
And
you know,
there's a
I
bunch
think
of
there's a, I
reasons
think there's a
listed.
tricky, there could be a tricky line in there.
No, they could-
Because somebody could come in with something that's not listed and say, well, it's not listed, so I want a special use permit. And the village might be saying, well, Jesus, if they do that, we're gonna get like 0 tax dollars, you know, so there might be specific things we do that we want to not allow and specific things we do want to allow. So
There-
that, you know,
There's a lot
it's
of
a little
reasons
trickier
to
than
grant
just,
this. Yeah,
what's that?
An applicant has to meet certain criteria to be granted a special use permit. There is a list of things, and one is benefit to the community, tax revenue, impact to the community. There's a whole bunch of things that are listed. I don't remember if it's in our code, but it is definitely in the New York State Planning
All right.
Federation's codes. So just because it's listed as a special use permit does not guarantee that applicant's right. That's what the difference between the two is. So you have to take into consideration the impacts and what the benefit to the community is. And, you know, having that type of manufacturing at a commercial business on Albany Post Road wouldn't be the same as having it in a different area of a C2. So that's what the beauty of a special use permit is. It allows increased oversight. It allows you to grant it and also allows you not to grant it. And the applicant, if they disagree with you, have to show that you acted arbitrarily and capriciously before they can even consider filing an Article 78. So you have the benefit of your codes. You have the benefit of the New York State Planning Federation codes for the special uses. It's just, you know, it's not willy-nilly. It's, you know, you have set criteria. And it's the same, goes on along the same lines as when you're granting variances. The applicant has to show that he needs that variance for the use of his property. Okay? It's not, hey, I want to cover, you know, 65% of my property. You have to show a reason. And changing site plans, you have to show a reason that there's no other ability to use your site. So you have those abilities.
Zoning board, yep. So can I just get some clarification here? So I think what I'm hearing you guys say is that on the scheduled uses, you would like to change that, which is part of our zoning code. You would like to be able to add things in to the C2, C1, whatever zone it is. But I believe, and I'm going to ask Stephanie, I could be wrong, but doesn't there have to be something like, I know you're saying special use, but isn't the planner involved? Isn't there traffic studies? Isn't there XYZ that's done in public hearings? If we're going to, like, I just always thought that you just couldn't add something in because we once again, we got into that situation once before. So I don't know, Stephanie, are you with us?
I am with you. And yeah, I think we have to be careful that we're not doing an end run around zoning laws. For instance, when the affordable housing or senior housing wanted to come in, we couldn't just, even if we had taken that project on as a village, right? We wanted to put some there. You can't just scribble it in under your schedule of uses. I mean, that's why we did the C1, C2 overlay with all the planning and traffic and seeker review, rather than just writing in a new use under their schedule of uses, right? So I do think seeker's involved, and I would rather call the planner myself to get his advice on this, because I think from what I'm hearing, we're suggesting, and I could be hearing it wrong, we're suggesting we're just going to take the table of use regulations and put new stuff in wherever we want it without doing any kind, and we didn't do that on the C1, C2, right? We went through a whole procedure as to what would fit there and what would traffic look like and what about the impacts, and that's how we sort of did that. And that's how zoning works, right?
Yeah, the seeker review would be included in the site plan review, as well as if it fit the zoning laws. So it would be up to the zoning board and the building inspector to determine, one, what zone they thought they would fit it in. And then you could go through that whole review process instead of changing the table of bulk regulations. Because the table of bulk regulations specifically says that anything not specifically listed is deemed as prohibited. So we're just trying.
Table of
it
use
does.
regulations, not bulk regulations.
Say again, but
It's the table of use regulations.
Yeah, you
not
think
the
table of use.
bulk.
Yeah, yeah.
Bulk
Well,
regulations. is
if
different
you
thing.
think that's illegal, that's fine, Steph. I'll agree with your interpretation. But everything, all of the safeguards that are in place for the zoning change would be in place for the site plan. Because you still have to do your seeker, you'd still have to do everything. And there's no guarantee that you have an approval if it's for a special use permit, because you have to show justification. And if there's no benefit to the community based on our laws, you don't have to approve it.
Yeah, the special use permit is different somehow in my mind as well, but I have to wrap my head around it. Than changing your schedule of uses by just scribbling in new things and scratching out others.
No, not for as of right. There's no way an as of right could ever be just scribbled in, but a special permit, because you already have that extra layer of review prior
Right.
to the development, I think would be better for that. Because as of right use, you can't tell them they can't do it unless you got a really good reason. You almost always lose those. But
Yep.
special use permit, they have to meet the criteria and to show the benefit to the community and all the other things that have to go with special use permit, which would also include the approval of site plan, the seeker,
Yep.
all of that stuff, you know?
Yeah,
So
I
that's
tend to
the
agree
only
with
thing
that.
that I would be suggesting, that we allow somebody to come and request a special use permit. Because there again, like I said, there's no way to postulate every probable use that could come up in 5 years, 10 years, or
Yep.
15 years,
Mhm.
you know? But if you don't think that it's wise, and if there's no other case studies on that where other communities have been able to use those successfully, I'll go along with what Nick says. But I think there's an easier way to do it.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that about the special use. I haven't even thought about it or wrapped my head around it.
Yeah.
I was more
Yeah, well,
concerned with, my thought was that what folks were saying, or some folks were saying, was just sort of change the schedule of use regulations by just changing it. I'd like to see this here, and obviously, we've all seen it when the recycling plant wanted to come in. I mean, we didn't say to them, okay, we'll just change the schedule of use. We say, welcome aboard. That's a zone text amendment. We're going to allow that. We're going to add it as a use, and we're going to change it on the schedule of use, like we did for the senior affordable housing. That was actually changed in the schedule of uses after we went through the whole procedure. We've subsequently
sunset
taken it
clause.
out because it's sunsetted, thank God,
Yeah.
and it's gone. You know what I'm saying? So I just have to think about it more. The special use permit
Okay.
is a different angle, which I'd like to think about more than just right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
just on my end, I mean, I think there's different things throughout the code that are not worded well, that are archaic. But I like Sean's suggestion, but there's a couple, generally, there's only a couple of specifics that have bothered me over the years. One was that in the C1, C2, mobile home parks were allowed, and I wanted that taken out of there. And we changed the bulk requirement on that to make it virtually impossible that ever happens. But mobile
I think
home
it's out
parks are-
now, right?
Is it?
Yeah, I believe it
Well,
is.
no, I think
We-
it's still in. We just changed the bulk regulations so that there was basically no place in the village that conformed, I
Oh, I
believe.
thought on the new C1, C2 overlay, it was actually removed, but I could be
Oh,
wrong.
in the overlay, yes,
Okay,
which yeah, which
Okay.
is, yeah. But that was a specific thing I wanted out. A specific thing I'd like in, and we could think of the wording is, the biotech and research, or, technology companies. I think I'd like to specifically add in, and I'm fine with some wording, and brew pubs, you don't need anything for. We allow restaurants, there's bars in the village, so you can't, so you can, I think it would be a pretty obvious interpretation that somebody would link a brew pub, to things that exist already in the village. And it would fall in under the category of, stuff that's allowed. But I think the a whole category of stuff, technology companies, I'd like a specific wording on that, even if we go to general wording on other stuff. Or if that use permit, if special use permit is a way to do it, I'm fine with that, but I would like that one specific area added in.
All right, and
Um,
Stephanie, if you could just, like you said, you had wanted to speak to the planner, if you could
Yep.
bounce that off the planner too, and then get back to us on that with what your thoughts and their thoughts are.
Yep.
Okay,
yes, ma'am.
thank you very much. Discussion on Lens Cove bathroom. Nick, this was another item you wanted to bring up to the board.
Well, I was generally saying that the park has gotten kind of shabby. I'd like to use rec fund money to get 4 or 5 new benches there. There's some old, some benches in pretty bad shape. I think that the park could be spruced up with 4, 5, 6 new benches. And I think that as long as we have a building there with I would like to see those bathrooms operable, even if it's only for certain occasions or certain days where the way the police or highway department opens the pavilion in the morning and the police is supposed to lock it at night. I mean, we could kind of figure out when to open them and when to keep them closed. But I think if we can get those bathrooms working, I think that would be a positive thing.
So
I
how
would like-
often are you looking to keep them open? Every day, weekends?
I'm not
Just
sure.
so we all have
I
a
think
concept.
that look, there's a shortage of public bathrooms is like a weird thing that this country seems to not believe in, which is why a lot of places smell like piss. I mean, you go out hiking, you go out on a bike trail. If
Okay.
there's no place to go, it either shortens your day or you go in the woods. I'm getting carried away here. I just think it would be nice to have those bathrooms improved and working, and we can, as a board, we can figure out, do we only open it for special occasions? Do we only open it on weekends? But I'd like to have them working.
Marcus, did you ever get any information from Bob Wheeler? Because I know they haven't been working, but is there any estimate of what it would cost to repair those?
I should be able to get you something next week or so. Bob was going to work with Tony to get some
Okay.
prices for the plumbing, the water lines, sewer lines, the sinks, what it need to be working. So I'll be able to get you a number next. As you know, Bob is away on vacation this week.
Oh, that's right. yeah.
Yep. So we'll get some numbers. I'll email it to the board, and you can discuss if you want to move
I
forward.
would say
or not.
it is a park setting. And as far as I'm concerned, you need an operating toilet, and cold water is fine. I don't even think we need hot water there. A lot of parks just have cold water. And, it's not an office building. I would be fine with that in the park. I know there was some issue with whether it was a drain or a feed from outside the building that was problematic. I remember that came up last time. So I don't remember if it was the cold water feed or if it was a drain. There was some line from outside the building to inside that was problematic, and I don't remember exactly what it was.
All right.
So it wasn't just a matter of putting new toilets if we need them. I'm not exactly sure what we need there, but I think we do need a secure door. And
I'll get you the information for the next. I'll get you the
Perfect. Thank
information
you.
as soon as possible.
Good.
So what are the
Good.
board's thoughts in general of having a bathroom over there, even if it's a porta potty?
I think a porta potty is probably more beneficial than spending all the money on fixing the bathrooms.
Mhm.
For the amount of use we get out of that park, I don't think fixing the bathrooms is really important.
And if we're gonna have a developer come in, if we're gonna do something, they're probably gonna wanna have a bathroom in a park that they're gonna rehab. That's one of the reasons why we didn't fix all the pavement. So, we do have the stopgap measures in place. The bar is locked at night. I would just hate to have some vandalism going on down there if we spent $15,000 or $20,000. Those bathrooms have not been operable since I don't know when, at least 20 years.
Yeah.
So we don't have the baseball field going anymore. We don't rent it out. We don't have games there anymore. So, a couple of porta potties that are pumped out every couple of weeks, I think that should be sufficient.
Yeah.
I like the idea of having a good park, an operable park, but I don't think it's in the cards right now.
Yeah, not right now.
Well,
Yeah, I think
what's
porta potties as a temporary until the place is well on its way of being fixed up, go permanent, because
all right?
too many ways to get in and destroy something like that. And I hate to
I
say
think
it,
that did
but
happen. I
people
think
like
that did happen years ago. There was some vandalism. over there with our bathrooms. I'd have to ask Bob Wheeler, but from my
And
memory, I
there
believe
was some
something
damage to the
happened.
door. I don't remember, it was people or
Yeah.
raccoons.
Well,
I
that's-
think there were raccoons nested in there.
So
Uh,
what were you talking about these benches, Nick? How many benches did you want? I thought we said we were gonna put benches down there.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
like
so
doing
I'd like
kayak
to just,
thing or something.
you know, I think new benches as far as I'm concerned, could come out of the rec fund.
Okay.
You know, and they're not that expensive. If you guys like the ones that we put up in front of the village hall, we can get that type. I think I think that, I gotta check, I think the two that are out at the point facing out, those might be in better shape because they're newer. But there's maybe, so maybe 4 or so that line the path. I'd have to go over and revisit it,
Yeah.
but
I think he's
um,
looking at replacing the cement ones. But you know, there's another thought too. Sometimes people like to donate benches, maybe a family could, you know, I mean, that's a thought too. I don't know. It's up to you guys. I'm sure
I
there'd
have
be
no problem with
families
that.
would
But you know,
do a donation.
you could get that same kind of bench, and
Mhm.
you can order it with
Well,
a
plaque.
that goes on one of the slats. And if somebody wanted to donate it, we could, that's fine.
All right, let's look into that. Let's see.
Whether it's just a
I know we have
donation or a
executive
memory of
session.
somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Marcus, if
Uh,
you could, we
And,
can always put it in next month's newsletter too, if the board is agreeable to that.
you know, I mean, I think at some point, we should be looking at some improvements over there, make it a nice usable park. I always thought a playground would be a good thing there. You know, because once you create a place where parents could go with their kids, adds to the use. Park's getting more use now than it has in the 30 years I've been in this village. And that's largely because people start or end their riverfront walks there. You know, just some general sprucing up and maintenance, I think would be important. Some kind of, you know, periodic, whether even if it's once every 2 weeks, that somebody goes there and cleans up and, you know, picks up dead branches or whatever. There just needs to be some more general maintenance there. What's the, Marcus, may I ask, what's the update on the kayak paddle sport dock?
I'll get you more of a detail. I didn't know it's going to come up. George was working with the DEC for the permits, so I'll get you an update and get it to you hopefully
Okay.
tomorrow from George.
Okay,
Which has
thanks.
been busy on a few good projects, so.
Yeah, good,
um,
good.
Okay, so the next is, I just need direction from the board with the firefighter exemption and the games of chance. If the board is agreeable to this, this has to be placed on the ballot in March. So does the board want to move forward with both of these?
Wasn't this
I mean, yes,
a
on both.
referendum or a ballot measure?
Stephanie, I believe she said we have to put that on.
Which one are we talking about? Both
We're
of them are
talking
going
about
to,
the firefighter exemption and games of chance.
yep, firefighter exemption is a ballot measure. Games of chance is as well, unless, and we can talk about it in an executive session where I prefer to do that. Because there's a second way to do it, which is sort of piggybacking off of the town's ordinance. And I'd rather talk about that in private.
But there's some issues with that. Yes, so.
But we
What
want to
about
do our own
ballot?
games of chance legislation,
Mhm.
right? We adopt our own. So we are the keeper of the games of chance in this village, which is from defining it to licensing to enforcing. That is pursuant to a mandatory referendum.
Okay.
And I would suggest you do it in January because then you go on the regular election rather than a special election. It's a ballot measure.
Sounds good.
All right, I'm
Yeah,
good with it.
Let the public decide.
Yep,
Very good.
absolutely.
And the firefighter is as well.
Okay.
But I guess there's no question about that one. We agree. Okay.
Is the
Okay.
firefighter exemption a specific state program or something? I mean, is that just something that municipalities do on their own? Or is
No,
there some-
that's the state legislature has allowed that. And it's
Okay.
10% of the assessed value, and there's some rules to the game. I would like to prepare it and have it ready for you sooner rather than later because there's a couple of choices. you know, you could say just a firefighter who's been 20 years, you can continue it. If God
Yeah,
forbid
I
he
would
died and
definitely
the
favor-
spouse. So I'm going to give you a sample of it. And you can take a look at it.
Yeah, I would definitely favor some, there has to be some criteria other than just you join the fire department and as a volunteer. You know, everybody in the fire department doesn't actively go out on fires. Everybody some people in the fire department basically show up for the meetings and or don't show up at all. I don't know. I'm not exactly
on,
sure,
wait.
but I think there has to be some criteria. You don't just join the fire department and get your tax exemption. You have
Yeah,
to.
there was, we
be an
discussed it
active-
before. There was some criteria to
Well,
that.
hold
Whether
on,
you're
hold
an
on.
active firefighter or you've been there 20 years or something, I think there has to be some criteria.
Yeah,
I'm
and what
not sure
happens
that
here,
should be.
what happens is it's in the legislature, right? It's a law. And there are parameters, but we don't dictate them. So if somebody's
Oh.
in the fire department for 20 years in the fire department, certifies that that is an active member, however they define that. As people get older, sometimes they don't have to get on calls. You know, they can do drills and
Right,
parades, and
Right,
if they're
right.
active, they get it. So
okay.
that's how that would work.
So they already have criteria that we can pick from. They already have a menu, A, B, C. Basically.
No, they
It's
have a
on-
menu in terms of, does it just apply to the firefighter, or if God forbid he dies and his spouse, you can
Oh,
continue it for the
okay.
Does it
lifetime of the
continue
spouse.
with the spouse?
Okay,
But no, we don't
Okay.
determine the 20 years. We don't determine that. The fire
we don't
department
get
or
to set
company.
that. Okay,
Right, does that.
okay, gotcha.
Anyway, I'll draft those both for you.
Please,
Yeah, let
thank
the
you.
public decide.
Yes. Discussion on the clock. This ended up being crazy, but you know, my take on this, you know, it's a beautiful clock. We need to maintain the clock, but I thought it was excessive to have the chimes. We did have the chimes working at one time. I remember, gosh, it's years ago now. And not everybody was happy with the chimes. So, and it's an expense, it's an added expense to get that repaired.
So Teresa, let's give everybody an update. The breakup would be 3585 to replace the covers and just change the lights to LEDs. That's a recommendation from them. And then the chime is 3495. But if you don't want to do that, that's fine. The chimes are outdated, they're not working. I send you guys the information, there's a whole bunch of updates for the chime. That's why that's more expensive. But if you don't want to do anything, that's fine. But if you want to do the LEDs and the covers, it's 3585.
So the covers have to be replaced?
The covers will be replaced with right now it's a plastic cover. So it's up to the board. You can take a look at it. They recommend it should be changed. It'll last longer. So it's your decision if you want to do it or not. They do an annual, Cindy can tell you, they do an annual review
Right.
of the clock and they come back with recommendations. And those were the
Yeah, it sounds like
recommendations.
they come back with recommendations to keep themselves in business.
There
What's-
you go.
So I look at the clock and guess what? I could read the time. I don't know that we need new lenses. Do we? What do we need new lenses for?
What
You-
shape
you
are the covers in that we need to replace them?
What's that?
What shape are they in that we need to be replaced?
Yeah,
I
that's
see the
exactly
clock.
what I'm saying. I don't know. I can see the clock. It's not like an old foggy, a headlight with a lens turned milky.
Why did they recommend that again, Marcus?
Because they were saying it's plastic covers. They're saying they want to replace it with a glass cover. That way it won't turn yellow over time. They said it's beginning to see discoloration. But again, it's just a recommendation. We don't have to do anything at all. I could just tell them, thank you
Mark-
for your recommendations. The village board doesn't want to do anything. That's fine.
Has anybody looked at the current ones closely? Because I just drive past, I could see the time and I don't pay it. I haven't, looked closely to see if it's discoloring, but is there an issue?
No, there's no current issue. No. So
Okay. And what's with the LEDs?
right now it's fluorescent lighting at the clock. They want to do LEDs to make them last longer and they don't have to be replaced.
I'm in
Is
favor
anything-
of the LEDs.
so-
I feel like that's a good idea, but as far as the plastic lenses, I unless you see a discoloration with the LEDs, then replace it.
Yep, so we could wait to see what the lights go out with the fluorescent, and then we can revisit that at that time. That's fine with me, if that's what the board wants to do. The lights are working
Yeah.
right now,
It
so we
sounds
can
more
wait.
like they just want to
Looking for business?
upgrade, and not that there's any particular problem at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
That's
If
think-
fine.
we had to,
That's
if
fine.
the lights
I-
burnt
yeah,
out or something,
No, that's fine. I'll just tell them that we're not interested in doing anything right now. That's fine. I just want to bring it up to your attention since it was their recommendation. That's all. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Marcus.
does the clock chime the hour or it doesn't do that?
No, it doesn't work at
Not
all.
anymore.
Nothing.
So it
No
used
more.
to have that music making thing in there?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, I thought it just
All
had a
kinds of-
chime for the hours. I didn't know it had a
all
whole
kinds of
host of
chimes.
songs.
Christmas time. You know what we used to have in the village, which was really nice, especially when we were kids. We always knew when it was 6 o'clock, and my family ate later. It wasn't 5 o'clock. So that was a signal for all of us to go home. The bottom of Henry Street, the church had a chime, and at 6 o'clock every night, the chime would go off. And that was really nice years ago.
Maybe at 6
Just a
o'clock,
side
all the
note.
board members can go out on their porches with a bullhorn and go, it's 6 o'clock.
We could do that. I don't think people would like it, but we could do that. Okay, and I'm sorry, I apologize. I put this on the agenda, the fire escape, because I really wanted the board to know what was going on, when we do repairs on certain things. I think it should have just been mentioned at the board meeting and discussed. It has to be done. It's not like it doesn't have to be done. I just felt it was more appropriate that the board understood what was going on. Marcus, would you like to go into any further discussion of what is going to be done with it?
So I send the board the information. If
Okay.
anybody looks at the staircase, it's pulling away from the concrete base. The brackets have split it off. And also it's pulled away from the building as well. So the contract's gonna replace the pad, reestablish the base, and then also re-anchor it to the side of the building. That was the proposal. No other contractors bid. George tried to reach out to other contractors. George did a scope of work. And just want, if the board wants me to bring these things up more often, please let me know. But that way I know what to do, what to move forward on or not.
But I'd like to keep the board apprised of things that are going on too. So it doesn't have to be a lengthy discussion. It could be an email. It could be just so the board is in the loop of things that are going on. The other question I have with the fire escape, I know there was a discussion that somebody was going to sand it down and paint it. That hasn't happened. So for the spring, I'd like to keep that in the forefront to have that done.
Yeah, that's the DPW does that in-house.
Okay, perfect. Good. Thank you.
One question on that, Mary. I know we had discussed fixing this fire escape a couple of months ago. And I think this proposal was actually given to us back in July. And we had gone so far as to say, yeah, go do the work. And now the work was scheduled and then it was stopped. These are repairs. I don't think we have to get down into this level of detail. We told, it was already discussed. We already told the cost. The work was already scheduled. And I don't think we need a resolution.
No, we don't need a
for
resolution, but I just like the board to be apprised on different things. So Marcus, going forward, just so, like you did the last week, if you could just do the email and say, we're repairing this, we're doing this, whatever, just, so the board is in the same loop with everything going on. Okay.
But didn't we discuss this the last workshop meeting?
I don't think it was on the
That was gonna be
workshop meeting.
worked on?
Yeah, I don't remember which workshop it was discussed on, but yeah, that's all. I'm I'd like to see that. That's all.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I think Marcus, for some things like this, especially when there are safety and emergency type repairs, should be able to move ahead. But I take the mayor's point, just, letting us know what's happening. I don't think anybody would oppose this. It's not like a discretionary thing like the clock. It's an important
Right.
repair.
okay.
No,
Marcus, sorry. Sorry, Marcus, did you want to, we might have this on the agenda next week, the 9A sidewalk. We had just gotten some information in.
Yeah, discussion with the DOT. I didn't realize this. Normally, when you do work on the DOT road or right of way, you need a DOT permit. And there's a blanket agreement that you can make with the DOT that a lot of municipalities already have. So the DOT suggested that the village board may authorize the mayor to sign this agreement that allows the village to do work on the Route 9A, sewer line, water line, without having to ask for a permit from the DOT. So I'll email it to the board members so they can look at it. It's a one-page thing. And also I have a sample resolution from Greenberg. We're going to just copy that agreement and provide it to the board members for review, hopefully an approval at the November 3rd meeting.
Okay, are we still on track for this year? It's, the weather's changing. Are we still on
Yeah,
track to have it done?
we're trying to. We're waiting for the contractors
Okay.
to go ahead and start moving forward.
Okay, all right. So the November 3rd meeting, we have the continuation of the sale of cannabis. And I want everyone to know, I had been asked to have the meeting also at Village Hall. So we will be doing a hybrid meeting for the for that public hearing. So anybody that would like to join me at Village Hall is more than welcome to. If you don't feel comfortable or you're ill, you can also be on Zoom. And any resident that would like to come in to the boardroom, more than welcome, or to come in on Zoom if you have any comments.
Can I comment on this?
Sure.
Excuse me, I'm just poking my iPad. As far as this, the sale of cannabis, first of all, I think that the public hearing has to be aligned with some legislation, you know, and we should be specifically, if we're completing the public hearing next Tuesday, we should be prepared to vote afterwards. And at this point, even though I'm generally not opposed to the sale of cannabis, I think that there's a couple of reasons to just have the legislation ready for Tuesday, that the board can vote to opt out. And at this point, I think I would vote to opt out unless we get an overwhelming public showing in favor of allowing the sales. Right now, we've had a few people express concerns. I haven't heard anybody say, oh, no, you got to do it. You got to, or for any, you know. So I encourage people who have opinions on both sides to attend the meeting live or on Zoom next Tuesday and express their opinions. But if this was something that was going to generate hundreds of thousands of dollars of income, I would say I think we should do it because it's going to be sold locally anyway up in Peekskill. You know, I think I would understand opting out of the places where you can go to actually, you know, like the marijuana equivalent of a bar where you go to consume the product, as opposed to just the sales points, which would be more like a liquor store. You don't go there to consume. But I think that we can always opt in later. And this is what a lot of municipalities are doing now. They're waiting to see how things work out. There's so little tax revenue involved, and there seems to be a general discomfort on the part of the public. So I would suggest that we have a resolution ready to vote on Tuesday to opt out. And the vote.
Opt out of retail sales and also.
Opt out of both. Yes,
Both,
opt
okay.
out of retail sales and places to use the product. The board can vote on it, and it either it passes or either it gets voted. The opt out gets voted on, voted out, or voted it, or it doesn't get voted out. And you know, let's complete it on Tuesday. Let's
Can I
not drag
chime
it
in
out.
here?
No,
Can I
yes,
chime-
yes, please, Stephanie.
Okay, so here's the thing. The public hearings were for discussion. If you'd like a public hearing to pass the local law opting out, I would need to publish that. You need to have that legislation 30 days before, and therefore, I can certainly have that to you and I can publish it, but the public hearing for the local law would be in December, which is the very, very, very last date
Yeah.
we can do this, because it's subject to permissive referendum. So I can have it to you, Nick, but we can't, you're not going to be voting on passing.
So we
a
have to
local
vote
law.
on it
December.
at the December meeting. That's fine.
Correct, and I have to
But I think that
republish it.
Yeah, okay. So you mean we have to have a separate hearing, not just this public comment period?
Correct, because you're going to be passing a local law. So it's a continuation. I just have to
Okay.
republish it because
Yeah.
we're
So
going
we-
to be passing a
okay.
local law. So,
Well,
but
listen to
anyway, I will
comments.
have that to you because you have to have it by next Tuesday, so you'll have it. And then you
Okay.
vote either way, whatever.
Okay, but
All right.
even though I was not opposed to having the stores, what I'm hearing in terms of the public opinion and what I'm hearing in terms of the small amount of tax revenue we might get makes me think just, opt out right now. If we change our minds for some reason in the future, then the board could vote to allow it.
Okay.
We're having a discussion now, are we? Are we gonna just, is this gonna be a discussion now? Or-
It's gonna be next Tuesday unless there's something you want to say about it.
Yeah,
It's a discussion and more public input.
Okay,
I
then
thought we could do that
continue.
part of
Yeah,
the next
it's all right.
meeting, but as Stephanie points out, we need to
Mhm.
advertise it and have the vote at the following meeting.
That's fine. We can just hold it over again. Okay, so any other comments from the board members or from the public? Because we do have to go into an executive session for negotiations.
Yes, on the agenda for next month, we
Uh-huh.
still don't have a resolution authorizing the cancellation or revocation of the Siemens contract for the remainder of the $640,000 original contract. I thought we were going to have that resolution to close the circle on that.
I thought that the letter from the company saying that our business ties have been terminated was enough.
Well, currently the contract is still open because the bill has not been paid. And even if the company agrees to do that termination, we should still have a resolution officially terminated. We have resolutions to accept resignations from planning and zoning board members. We should at least have a resolution to terminate a previously approved resolution for over $500,000, $640,000. And I thought we were in full agreement that was going to be actually in last month. And when we discussed it, we said we were going to have it this month, and I still don't see it on here. And also, there was still a question on an interpretation on whether that bill should actually be paid legally because of what the terms and condition of the contract were. And Marcus, we've discussed this several times. There is no initiating document that actually allowed them to start work prior to May 25th of 2019. And the term and condition of them starting to work was escrow deposit of $640,000 in a bank account within several days of the signing of the contract. So I had asked Marcus. Marcus had contacted the company, said they could not find any initiating document. So there has to be some document that told them to go to work prior to May 25th, 2019. So
Sean, could you, I know I relooked at that and I don't think you went far enough because yes, they wanted an escrow amount, but if you continued on to the next paragraph, it said if there is no escrow, then they would bill us for billable hours.
okay, so what the contract actually says is the funding of the escrow to allow timely the funding of the escrow account in the amount equal to or greater than the price stated in Article 1.1 above shall be a condition precedent to Siemens' obligation to perform or to continue the performance of work. If the escrow account is not funded within days of the execution of this agreement, the agreement shall be null and void. The day funding period may be extended mutually agreed upon. In the event that the agreement becomes null and void as described in this paragraph, and client has previously authorized Siemens to proceed with the work, the client shall be obligated to reimburse Siemens either for the work performed to date or the work specifically authorized by the client. And that's the question that I have. Where is that authorizing document prior to May 23rd? Because this was signed on May 23rd, 2019. So there has to be some document that authorized that work prior to 5/23/19 and after September 4th, 2018. So there has to be some initiating document that authorized them to do work, or else they wouldn't have done the work. And that's the thing that I've been looking for.
Okay, I'll relook at that.
Hey, Marcus,
Have we forwarded a payment to them?
Say again?
We haven't forwarded a payment to them yet, have we?
The bill, the voucher is still in Village Hall, missing one signature.
hey, Marcus.
So. I'm sorry,
Stephanie?
Stephanie, go ahead.
Would you like,
Yes, Steph.
Hi, Marcus. So Sean just mentioned you spoke to Siemens about this?
Yeah, I asked Siemens to see if they have any other agreement beyond that one agreement that I have And the gentleman told me, I don't have anything except that's the actual agreement. But I left another message after Sean asked me about it again the other day. And I left the guy a message again saying, can you please see if you have anything else? So he said he was going to check. I'm waiting for a response.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing I remember was the meeting that Kevin came to us, the previous
Yes.
administrator, and said, we're at the point now where if
Yeah.
we ask them to go further, we will then be obligated for a minimum amount depending on what services have been formed to date. Do you want me to tell them to go further? And I think the board did at that time, even if it was a mistake, did at that time say, yes, let's proceed. And then I don't know if that was followed up with a signature from,
Well, it has to
So
be
the-
something. There has to be an email. There has to be somebody who authorized the execution of a contract that wasn't already signed.
right, and I don't know,
Well, because
after that,
Previous,
Oh
res-
my God, Erin.
I don't know after that discussion, if Kevin, the mayor, or anybody signed anything. So it sounds like perhaps there was not anything official following that conversation. I don't know.
Well, I mean, can we reach out to Kevin? Marcus, do you want to reach out to Kevin?
Mhm.
Sure, I'll give him a call tomorrow as well. No problem.
Because
Thank you.
I also
Great.
remember, I remember that, but I seem to, and I could be wrong, I seem to remember Kevin telling me that some document was signed and that I would kill him because I hadn't seen it. So, I mean, I think somewhere, no, really, I think somewhere along the line there.
Ouch.
And he did say that to the board, and it is in the minutes, and the board said, yeah, we understand, let's move forward. And then, if I'm not mistaken, there was a document of some sort that I never saw, but that it was apparently signed approving them to go forward. And I think Kevin would have all the history on that because Kevin was rocking and rolling back then with that.
somebody has to produce a document that authorized an expenditure prior to the contract. You know, I don't know anybody who would do any work in the amount of up to $640,000 on a
Right.
verbal phone call or an email.
Yeah,
Somebody has
yeah.
to sign something to do that.
Oh,
Right.
Oh, my
Yes,
God.
that's what I would think, but I don't know.
Okay.
I can look in my records too. We're back on my emails. I don't know. I
Right.
remember hearing about it later and then seeing this contract. And the paragraph you guys were referencing is what I also saw when looking at whether or not we should pay it, and that if we didn't fund it, we owed them for time and materials. That's when I asked Marcus, get the time and materials, which apparently we got, and all the backup. So what we're missing is who authorized it and how, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
so Marcus, are you comfortable calling Kevin, or I'll do it?
If you don't mind giving him a call, and I'll call Siemens again, maybe we can split him and we can catch up tomorrow.
Okay, I'll give him
Thank
a
you
call.
so much.
Sure.
Oh, good.
I have a couple other questions, Ryan, I'm sorry. I was reviewing some of the bills and I came across a bill from Hardesty in Hanover for 2.5 hours in the amount of $450 for reviewing a code. And the code review was basically to look at a table of bulk regulations. And I don't know if we should talk about this offline, but I don't think it's right to be charged 2.5 hours to look at a page. That's just me. I looked at that same page and it took 2 seconds to tell that you can't have 8 family residents in a small zone like that. So I would encourage people to look closely at the bills. I think we should to contact them and maybe renegotiate that, because I don't think that we should be charging a resident that amount of money to tell them that he can't put in a building permit.
Shane, Sean, I did, and they're gonna put it down to 1 hour, if that's okay with you and the rest of the board.
Good. All
And
right.
then, I was looking at the bills also. I see we had some sea lands delivered to Village Hall, not Village Hall, the old municipal building. I wonder how long are we gonna be renting those?
Somewhat, Sean?
Sea land trailers? You know, the things that we told the residents they're not allowed to have, we had 2 delivered. So I just, you know, if we're renting them, or, you know, I think if if we're not allowed, if the village residents aren't allowed to have sealant containers on their property for storage, I don't know that we're allowed to, are we?
Are you talking about, go ahead, Marcus.
Yeah, I think those are trailers, the trailers that we got from Entergy. I gotta check with Bob, but I think those are the containers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
village
Bob.
residents, we passed a law that prohibited them from being used for more than 30 days for storage on residents' properties.
Well, municipalities do not have to follow the rules. For
So
example,
we
the
do
library behind me is part-
do as
the
I say,
library
not
right
as I
behind
do.
me is part of the town of Cortland, and they can try to be good neighbors, but they're not required to follow the time limits on noise. For example, if they want to get out there with their mowing and leaf blowing in an hour that's not allowed in the town, municipal buildings do not have to follow the code.
And just to
Municipal
let everybody know,
operations.
just so everybody, Bob got those because he doesn't have enough space in the garage and moved equipment around. So you know, when Bob is back, he can explain to you what he was using it for, and then the board can decide. If you don't want them, then Bob can explain to you what the effects will be by getting rid of them.
Those were given to him. Those were given to us by Holtec.
I just think we should be following the same rules we tell the residents they have to follow. You know, everybody has a reason to go
That would
around.
be ethical, but not necessarily the law. Where are the containers currently?
They're right
They're back by
behind.
where the old playground, where the playground is, by the old village hall.
In that flat area behind the municipal garage?
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, so have Bob look into that if he wants to come to the next board meeting to discuss it with the board. And if the board does not want that there, then we will have to have them removed. And then Bob will have to find other areas to store everything he has in there. So that's up to the board. What else do we have?
When is the auction going off for the things that we had deemed as
Surplus?
surplus
I
items?
asked Bob that last week. I forgot, Marcus, do you remember what he was waiting for?
Yeah, the fire truck that we have, the fire truck we got to get rid of. There's some documents missing in order to sell that truck. So Bob was trying to get to motor vehicle and get that information so we can put that on an auction block.
Can we
So
do
I
the
can
other
have Bob
things
give you an update
first?
when he comes back from vacation as well.
Okay, can we do the other things first, and then when we have the available
Yeah, Bob said,
information for the
yeah,
fire
yep,
truck?
yeah. Bob
Okay.
said he didn't want to wait any longer. He was going to start
Okay.
getting out, get rid of the chairs and everything else that
Okay,
we're
good,
going to get
because
rid of.
Bob was in charge of that, so.
Okay. Thanks.
Anybody else?
I have one thing. Next, the LWRP committee is meeting next Thursday at 6:30. If anybody on the board has any thoughts or comments on the LWRP draft, I would ask you to email me by next Wednesday, and I will bring your comments or questions to the meeting.
Okay. And everyone realizes the meeting isn't next Tuesday because of the holiday. It was in.
I
our
didn't realize that.
Yeah, in our organizational meeting, we had changed it to the next day.
Ah, okay.
So it'll be
The next day.
Wednesday.
It's
It'll
Wednesday?
be Wednesday, yep.
Oh, how about
The
that?
holiday fell on Tuesday. We would have the meeting the next day.
Gotcha.
Just want
Okay.
to keep everybody in the loop.
And just a reminder, holiday's election day, so get out and vote.
That's it. Okay, the board is good. We have 2 attendees. Somebody's got a hand raised. Marcus, who has their hand raised? Oh, Eileen, hi. Eileen, you're muted.
Okay,
Okay.
gotcha.
All right.
I have a question. We have a tree on Tate Avenue at 144. It's huge and it's right next to the curb and it's dead. So I'm just asking proactively before the winter or any strong winds, what is the status of those trees that are within that 8 foot from the curb? Who has to take them down? Otherwise, if it does come down, it's either going to take the power lines down, like it did once for a tree on the other side did back in 2009 or 2010.
Eileen, what's the address of that tree again?
144.
Okay, I'll have Bob I'll have DPW take a look at it tomorrow.
Okay. I do know it's dead though, Marcus. So,
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
thank you.
All right, thanks, Eileen.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss negotiations.
So move.
Second,
Second,
all in favor?
aye.
Aye, thank you.
All right.